Sorry about that, boys. Back. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll take a look at the video.
Okay. So,
okay,
we've got about 39 minutes before I can log in. I've made a little list of the things I want to see. When I talk about these changes and things I'd like to see, a lot of you guys will be like, well, you just want classic.
Yeah.
And you're not wrong.
There it is.
I feel like there's some things that have been solid throughout, a lot of what I consider to be the good expansions. I think overall are just really well received by the community and things people really enjoy. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to open up a little notepad, okay? And in this notepad, we're going to go over my top Venruki's top changes I want to see, okay? Here are the top changes that I want to see. Number 1,
all right.
I want classes to feel more complete. Play the class and not the spec, okay?
Oh,
so I feel like right
yes.
now, they've gone super
100%
deep into
agree.
the individual specialization fantasy. So when you're a fire mage...
Whoa. What are you guys doing the no changes for? He's talking about retail WoW, not classic WoW. The fuck you guys y'all are dumb. Like, he's not talking about retail, he's not talking about classic. Holy shit. I swear to God, like, you know how I really found out the Twitch chat was fucking stupid? Is whenever Trainwrecks on April Fools played a VOD of a cooking stream that me, him, and Esfon did 8 months ago, and chat was pogging with it. They were pogging with it, man. They're like, oh, this is so funny, man. Wow, oh, God, this is fucking awesome. Like, and they were laughing at the same stupid fucking jokes. And there's like 3 people in the chat that got it. Literally, pre-recorded stream. Played this same fucking stream back. That was so funny. Anyway, what Venruki is saying here, I completely fucking agree with 100,000,000% plus 5.
You feel like a fire mage.
Right.
When you're a frost mage, you feel like a frost mage. When you're an arcane mage, you feel like an arcane mage. What I would like to see is I'd like to see the overall kits of classes be brought back to a point where they feel very full. And instead of playing a fire mage, you're playing a mage. And of course you can specialize in different areas, but I feel like overall your toolkit should feel very complete just with your base class. Number 1. Okay?
Okay.
Number 2 off this one is class homogenization. Okay? Right now, with Battle for Azeroth, the way classes deal damage is too similar. For the most part, classes have really weak gainers and really strong spenders.
Yep.
Okay?
With a
so
big
for
CD.
Mages, I'm going to use mages as an example, but I could use a boomkin for an example as well. You use your Wrath, you use your Lunar Strike, I think it's whatever it's called.
Who gives a fuck?
And they both kind of do nothing. You know what I mean? Like the spells you can spam out, like Frostbolt, like Fireball.
Yeah.
They don't do any damage. It's only the spenders that do damage. Ellie Shaman is another one where Lightning Bolt really doesn't do much damage. Almost all of your damage comes from Earthshock and Flame Shock. So
I really agree with this.
I feel like just the way classes deal damage and the overall
it's Ozzy in chat.
homogenization and resources that they have to manage, I don't necessarily like. I would be more comfortable if they brought back mana. Like I don't mind when casters, when they have mana, are really, really strong. And then they have...
I like how Venruki is saying bring back mana. Because realistically, it's not in the game. It's just not in the game. It's crazy to me, man. I really don't fucking understand it at all. The way that they've handled this. What the fuck is this, man? Let's go to the rest of this. Arcane mages, healers have mana, brother. Yeah, but I'm not talking about healers. Like, he's a mage. He's talking about mages. Like, yeah, I like the idea that, like, mages have, like, their mana bar is basically how long they can pump out damage. But, yeah, he's totally right. Like, I think there's a few exceptions. I thought that, like, Shadow Priest did damage in kind of a unique way in Legion. Because it didn't really have, like, a very, very formal AoE. And Affliction Warlocks did that, too, to an extent. But overall, I think that his point is very accurate. Like, 95% of classes and specs play relatively the same.
Some downtime where they have to regen that mana, and that's what kind of balances them with melee. That's a system that I like a lot more. I don't like the idea of spenders doing infinity damage and your gainers doing no damage at all.
Because it's boring.
I don't like it. When I cast a Frostbolt, I want my spells to do something. So that's another one. So we do like resources, for example. Another thing that I really want to see is
he's talking about PvP.
talent trees. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't realize how much I like talent trees.
Fuck
and
yeah,
how
man.
impactful respecking and just making minor adjustments in your talents really is. Like, for example, right now on my mage, specking into Frostbite versus specking into Imp Blizzard,
it feels different.
Completely changes the feel of my class. If I'm spec'd into Frostbite, all of a sudden I can't do any AoE grinding, and I also feel a lot stronger in PvP. However, if I'm not spec'd into it, I can AoE grind, and I can pick up Imp Blizzard, and just little minor tweaks in your specializations feels like you can really customize your characters to a point that feels meaningful to me. Because right now, the way they have it set it up, you don't really have talent. Well, you do have talents, but the talent rows are just individual abilities. And I feel like I would rather just have those abilities be a part of the class and then have little tweaks that you can do via talent points. I think it's a lot more fun. Like, I personally don't feel like, as a Frost Mage, I should have to spec into, Comet Storm or Ebon Bolt. Those are just abilities that my class should have to feel more complete.
I can see that.
So I would like to see talent trees brought back, and I want to get away from forcing us to spec into, fun abilities. I'll tell you right now.
That's actually a really good point. And like the way he described that actually does, I think that's really meaningful the way he described it. You have to spec into fun abilities. I told you, I ding, dude. How about that? How about that shit? How about that shit? All right, good job, boys. Great work. We probably should go over to LBRS and farm there instead. I think LBRS is actually going to be better for experience at 55. Just saying that. Leeching experience? No, I'm helping them. I'm giving them the buff. They have my imp buff, so it's okay. And that way they can clear faster without having to worry about dying. But anyway, the point that I'm making, right, is that, that's why I got them for the attunement. That's why I got them 55. I think they should do both. I think they should have like your traits, which are like the new talent trees, and then they should bring back the old talent trees. And you have like your max level traits or your capstone abilities whenever you hit like every 10 levels or every 15 levels, something for you to look forward to. Then on top of that, you have your traits, or your talents that you're leveling up every single time. And I think if they did both of those, holy shit, I would love it. I would be so happy.
Now, it really doesn't feel good to give up an ability like Comet Storm, for example, just so I can get Thermal Void in raids.
Yeah.
It's not that fun to get a passive versus have an actual on-use ability. Like, I feel like those abilities should just give it to me. You know what I mean? And of course there's going to be some options that, like, I don't mind if there's occasional options like Pyroblast as a talent, for example, but really, really fun, impactful abilities I don't think should, you should ever have to trade those off for some passive that's just better
a throughput
in
passive.
terms of a numerical value.
Yeah, I think the abilities generally should be better. I think there's a couple of exceptions. Like, for example, I don't really like having to use the Furious Strike or whatever it's supposed to be called now in BFA. But in general, I think that abilities and things that complicate rotations should trend to being a bigger damage boost. And on top of that, I like the idea of being able to have, I don't like the idea of having items and abilities that are specific to PvP. Now, even in Classic WoW, you have abilities that you cannot use in PvP. Curse of Doom is the obvious exception. Curse of Doom cannot be used in PvE. In PvP. You cannot cast it on a player. And that it's kind of disappointing that's the case, but like there's no way it would work if you could cast it on a player. It just would not work. So I totally understand it. 2 minutes to core. Yeah, I'll do that later on. Let's just go up to LBRS though right now, guys. Go ahead.
You know what I really like about Venruki?
What?
He is the perfect example of a person that I wanted to play Classic WoW. Because 5 months ago, he made a video about how he was wrong about Classic. Do you remember watching that video?
I didn't need to watch
how he said.
I told you a story, right? About the first time I was at Blizzcon, didn't I? With like me.
No.
So this was in BlizzCon 2017, I guess, the year that they announced Classic WoW. So Classic WoW had just been announced, and we were sitting around and we were talking about the game, and we were talking about like the positives and negatives of it. It was me, Zach, Mikkel Rivi, Sidu, Venruki, Rich, I think maybe Supatis was there, I don't remember, and then Zico. All of us were all sitting in a hotel room talking about this. And the most ironic thing about it was Sidu and Venruki. I remember Sidu specifically, but I don't remember. I think Venruki kind of echoed this sentiment too. He's like, man, I don't think I'm going to like Classic. I don't think it's going to be good for my stream.
Yes.
They actually thought that it was not going to be good for their stream. Like, and that was like back in, 2 years ago or something. And I was like, no, man, it's going to be good. Like, you're going to like it. And
now look.
Yeah, now look. How about that?
Sidu has Hand of Rag. He fucking loves it.
Yep.
And Venruki is thinking of ways to make retail better through classic means. You know?
How good is that?
I just think it's fucking awesome. I wish everybody was like Venruki.
Yeah.
Also, he's really handsome, by the way. Like, anyway.
I don't like that very much, so I hope that's something that they do. Another thing I want to have in the game, or another thing that I'd like to add, is just less self-healing and passive tankiness. So my favorite example of this right now is a Destruction Warlock. Okay? So a Destruction Warlock, it feels really weird, because when I'm playing my Windwalker Monk, or I watch a Warrior, or I watch anything attack a Warlock with 100% uptime, it makes no sense how you can be a melee hitting a cloth and he feels more durable than a Guardian Druid.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the best way to go about it. I feel like classes like Destro Warlocks, like Warlocks in general, were a lot more fun and they made a lot more sense when they actually had a toolkit that let them kite, get away from melee, avoid damage, and if they were bad at those things, they would take additional damage from melee.
And it's also Warlocks in general, like Demo Locks in Classic and in Burning Crusade had Soul Link. I mean, in Burning Crusade, there was Soul Link, Siphon Life. They were the tanks. But at the same time, they didn't really do a lot of damage, and that was the unique thing that they brought to the table. I think that the main thing with what Venruki is saying is I would actually be okay if Warlocks were the most tanky class in the game. But the problem is that all the other classes are also tanky. Like, that should be a bonus for being a Warlock, and that should be a bonus for being just a Demo Warlock or an Affliction Warlock, not all Warlocks. And I think that's the issue.
As an example. So having, like, Shadow Flame Slow, Portal, Gateway, Coil, like, baseline abilities like that allow you to actually kite, get away, and then do good consistent damage instead of just sitting there and taking less damage than a Guardian Druid. It's just... I really feel like we should have more active defensives, more things we should use, not super powerful active defensives, you know what I mean? Like, an example of defensive cooldown that I don't really like is Ironbark. Like, Ironbark I think is just way too strong. But I think just like little things you can do to actually outmaneuver your opponent and actually separate yourself. Because right now, when I play Battle for Azeroth, I don't really notice a difference. When I go fight a 2000 rated Destruction Warlock and I'm just attacking him and he's taking no damage, there's no difference between that Warlock and Snuts. They're both just standing still, spamming out abilities. You know what I mean? Obviously, that's a very extreme example, but I really feel that way. Whereas if they did take more damage, you would see players that are really good be able to utilize that toolkit in order to actually effectively get away, kite, create distance, maximize their damage, which I think is a lot more fun. That's just one example. Warlocks, in terms of self-healing and passive tankiness, I really feel like the self-healing is out of control. I am okay with classes having to use bandages and food. If there's anything that playing Classic and remembering TBC and Wrath of the Lich King has kind of shown me, it's that it's okay to use first aid and food to regenerate your HP. I don't think you need to be in a situation where you have an ability like Crimson Vial that just tops you off. I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but it feels...
It's not even really. It's like 40% of your health over 6 seconds or something like that, I'm pretty sure. It's something insane. And like with Warriors, it's the same thing. Like, I mean, like Fury Warriors, I'm at 30%. Oh, I thought it was 40. Maybe it's not anymore. But anyway, I think it is with talents like called Iron Lung or something. I don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is that it heals you for a huge amount. And it's only on a 30-second, I believe, cooldown. I do think that, like, there probably is too much self-healing and sustainability in classes. And because of the self-healing, I think that the self-healing plays into his second point of passive healing. Or, sorry, passive tankiness. Because they're doing all these self-heals, which makes them more tanky. And remember Mop's Second Wind? Yeah, it was beautiful. And I like certain classes being able to self-heal, but I don't think that self-heal should be something that all classes should expect to be able to do. So, for example, I don't think mages, arms warriors, I think fury warriors being able to self-heal is kind of cool, but not arms warriors. Let's see, who else besides that? Like, rogue shouldn't be able to self-heal. All the other classes, I think it's basically okay. But like those pure DPS classes, I don't think they need to be able to self-heal. Hunters, yeah, hunters should not be able to self-heal. Maybe there's like one ability that they could kind of use to like increase their mana regen or their healing regen or something like that. Maybe, but the amount of different ways that people have to regenerate their health and basically recover in the game, I think recovery is much stronger in BFA in general, like than Classic. I mean, it's not even a comparison. It's like, 1 to 100. How much more effective people are at recovering.
Really weird to me when I can fight a rogue, get him to 10% health, and he re-stealths behind the pillar, and the next time he opens on me, he's 100% health.
Isn't that cute?
Damage and he didn't eat. He's just full health.
Isn't that
adorable? I think
adorable?
all the passive self-healing is really... It doesn't feel good psychologically because it feels like the damage you're doing isn't permanent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right now, on Classic, when I Frostbolt someone and they're 50% health... Like, I know they're in kind of panic mode. Of course, they can first aid, which has a cooldown, or they can go eat, reset, but those things make sense to me. It just feels like right now, if I don't burst someone down really, really quickly, I just know their passive healing is going to...
And you have to wait for your CDs with that, too.
My damage doesn't feel permanent, and it feels really weak because of that. So I'd really like to see less self-healing and passive tankiness in the next expansion for most classes, for almost all classes, to be completely honest with you. Oh, cooldowns. This is another thing I think is too good. Cooldowns are too strong. So cooldowns, but I think offensive cooldowns are too good. So I know it's really, really fun in raids because
I think that like the funny thing about cooldowns being too good is they nerfed the fuck about cooldowns. They nerfed the fuck out of cooldowns. In BFA, like in Legion, cooldowns were like 3 times more effective. Like, think about Battle Cry for Warriors in Legion. It gave you full rage, it made every attack crit, and it also gave you more damage. And it made you do like 30% more damage. So, go ahead. Listen, dude, I'm getting into the video, alright? I'm getting into it. Relax. Now, it only gives you like, a little bit of rage, I think, and just like makes you crit. Like, makes your attacks have a higher chance of crit. But still, cooldowns, I don't know if cooldowns are too strong now. I don't know. I think maybe defensive cooldowns could be. It's hard to say. Especially the immunities. There's a lot of classes that have basically immunities now.
You believe me, I was one of those people that rated as a fire mage, and when your damage spikes 400% when you combust, like, sure, that's really, really fun. But I feel like when you have offensive cooldowns on every class that are so powerful, what ends up happening is your consistent damage has to be really bad. And maybe that doesn't feel super bad in raids. Like, maybe it's okay that you have this massive power spike when you're raiding or you're doing Mythic Plus. But what happens when you have these really powerful offensive cooldowns and you're in an arena, essentially they have to put your consistent damage at a place where it's very minuscule.
Yeah,
because
for
when
it to
you're
balance out with the high-end
damage power spikes, 200% damage power spikes, and you had, like, let's imagine a world where you actually had good consistent damage, and your Frostbolt was hitting for 30k. When you do use all those modifiers like, Ice Form and, an offensive trinket and deep shatter and just like the modifier after modifier after modifier after modifier, all of a sudden your damage is completely outrageous and egregious. So I think a big culprit and something I'd like to see changed is offensive cooldowns being nerfed and consistent damage being brought up is something I would really, 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 really like to see.
That's what people have wanted for a long time.
I also think I don't want to see... So when I say this, take this with a grain of salt, but I almost want to see the way you do damage a little bit more simplified. Not too simplified.
Yeah.
But I don't really like the feel, personally, when I have all these different Azerite traits and effects on my gear, for example, and trinkets. And at the end of the game, I go and I look at my damage breakdown, and over 50% of my damage is from Azerite trait procs, trinket procs, and gear
passive
procs.
Abilities.
Because during the game, you don't really feel them so much. It's all these little numbers that are just kind of passively happening. It doesn't really feel that satisfying to deal damage that way. Whereas, like, getting a big Frostbolt...
Because you're not dealing damage. The game is. The game's dealing damage. If I go on my warrior and all I do is use Mortal Strike, my top 3 damage, like actually just in a normal match, my top 3 damage is Deep Wounds, Mortal Strike, Melee. Something like that. So, like 60-70% of my damage is derived from one ability. Like, that's it. And like, just using that ability and all of the different things that are kind of consequences of that ability is making me do most of my damage. Active versus passive. Yeah, I think that Deep Wounds is okay, but it's like there are a lot of classes that have this same breakdown.
Cone of Cold, or, you know,
yeah,
a big meteor, or a lightning bolt, chain lightning, earth shock. I'm using a lot of mage examples, but you kind of know what I mean. I just don't think it feels as good to have all these random small damage sources, 5, 6, 7 different random damage sources that are just passively happening versus your abilities actually doing damage. So I'd really like to see a lot of, like, you know, I hope there's not Azerite gear next expansion, but whatever new systems they implement, I really just hope it's not just passive damage, a passive dot, you know, like stuff like Dagger in the Back and Thunderous Blast. Like, those to me are really, really boring.
Yeah.
They also create an environment where in order to figure out how to do your ideal damage, you need to actually go to external sources.
Yeah.
I forget what the website is called, but...
Well, yeah, because you don't know what the proc rate on any of this stuff is. It's not evident through the abilities. Like, you can't tell. Like, if you gave just a person, you gave them all of the different abilities and all of the different Azerite traits, and you said pick the best ones, how long would it take them to figure that out? It would take them forever. And I don't think that being able to make a decision like that and knowing the right decision just because you looked it up on the internet, I don't think that's good gameplay. Like, the differences between the Azerite traits are way too high. Like, let me pull this up, okay? Where's Blood Mallet? Look at this shit. I still got up from retail days. Look at that. How do you know? How does somebody know that Overwhelming Power is that much better than Gut Ripper? You know, I mean, how is it evident that Overwhelming Power does that? How is it evident that Azerite Globules is that bad? How is it evident that, you know, Elemental Whirl is terrible, or Unstable Flames, or something like that? It's very hard to tell. And then you go over and you look at the tier 3 and tier 4 traits. Look at this. Undulating Tide. So this is broken. Cold Steel Hot Blood. Look how high that damage is. You go all the way down here. How are you supposed to know that Ruinous Bolt is this much worse than Cold Steel Hot Blood? It's not evident through being able to just play the game. It's not evident.
That website that shows you the value of different Azerite traits, like, oh man, I have these two options.
I don't like
one
that.
Passively deals damage and the other one passively deals damage. Which one's better? Well, I'm gonna go look it up on a website that sims it for me.
Right.
Like, I don't think that's a really good feeling. I don't think it's super intuitive. I'm just not a big fan of that. So I'd like to see stuff like that go away. That's kind of my cooldowns, passive healing, classes feeling more complete. I want your actual abilities to do damage. I want the class to do damage, not your gear,
not your secondary,
your traits.
Yeah.
Especially when those traits, trinkets, and gear are the same for every class. Like, I just think that's really boring. Like Dagger in the Back and Battlefield Focus and, you know, the leather pants and, you know, the trinkets that just proc damage. Like, when the majority of a class's damage is coming from trinkets and all the classes deal damage the same way with those random passive damage sources, it's just... all right, so the next thing I'd really like to see is I
think the reason why they do that is to make it to where the good players aren't really that much better than the bad players. So, like, for example, like, if you have all of your abilities, all of your damage is done by passives, then there's less room for making a mistake, because you don't have to know your rotation if all of your damage is just done by fucking passives. But the problem is that it actually works in the opposite way, because the bad players choose the wrong passives. So it's not only are the good players using the right passives and doing a rotation, but the bad players are using the wrong abilities and using the wrong passives. It makes the difference even bigger than it would naturally be. I don't understand, man. It's crazy.
Better, less random gearing system where you can actually target rewards that you want via farming a dungeon. And once you get that reward, you don't have to hope that it Titan Forges. You don't have to hope that it warforges. You don't have to hope that it's socketed. You know when you get that piece of gear, it's a good piece of gear, okay?
Yeah.
I much prefer
It's
the
self-evident.
model where a piece of gear drops, it's good. Maybe it doesn't drop as often, but when it does drop, it feels good, and you got the gear, and you're done.
Yep.
Where, as opposed to, okay, I'm looking for this belt. Oh man, it didn't Titan Forge. Oh man, it didn't socket. Oh
Too
man,
bad.
it didn't Warforge.
Ooh.
Like, and you're just getting spammed
No
with all of these
tertiary?
different
Fucking
epics
loser.
that are, you know, not satisfying. They don't feel good. That's something that I don't really like. I much prefer the old system of gearing, where there's an item in a dungeon, or there's an item in PvP that you can work towards.
Yep.
Maybe it's not the easiest to get. Maybe it takes, you know, a couple days, a few tries, a few weeks. But once you get that item, you know you're done. You know, you don't have to keep going and keep going and keep going.
Fuck yeah.
In order to get it. Now, with that being said,
I was so happy whenever I got Striker's Mark, because I knew I just got the best item in the game. The issue is, like, Blizzard feels like players need to have continuous character progression. I think that, like, Blizzard is too afraid to let players make their own content. Blizzard always has to direct how players are going to play the game. You look at Classic and players create their own content. Yeah, that's what alts are for. Exactly. You play your alts. You play something else like that. That's what it's all about, man.
I actually don't mind sockets. I think sockets are cool. I think Warforging is cool. I think Titan Forging could even be cool.
Ooh.
But in my opinion, they should be via professions. I think you should be able to add sockets to gear with the profession, and maybe the mats for it are not easy to get or gather.
This is a
but
great
if you
video.
could target, socket your gear. You could target Warforge your gear. You could work towards Titan Forges. I think that's a really awesome system, and that's something I would actually enjoy doing, and it's something they've done in the past. And I think it's a lot more satisfying, and it's a lot more fun than just randomly happening. And that kind of brings me to my next thing, where I really like to see professions matter again, as well as the economy. So I really like professions mattering. I like when you have a profession and you...
So the economy issue, this is something I actually talked to Trainwrecks a lot about. And because, you know, he's like a big guy with like making gold and gold farming and all of that shit. To me, I was never really too into that. But for him, this is like a really big thing. And now that I thought about, like, the economy in the game did really matter a lot. The economy was great, and it did actually made more things in the game relevant. I think having a meaningful economy made more different places and parts of content relevant. It's like back in the day, I would make gold farming guides. Now nobody cares about gold farming guides. Apparently, I don't care about my camera getting fixed either. But now nobody cares about gold farming guides anymore, because you can just basically buy tokens, or it's not really a thing anymore. Like, why do you farm gold? Why do you need to farm gold? What's the point of farming gold? What are you going to buy? There's no reason. You made people go around the world. Yeah, there's no purpose.
I feel like it gives you a distinct advantage, and you really have to figure out, like, all right, so for PvP, engineering is really, really good. But at the same time, it's like,
best.
do I want to be an engineer and a miner to make my engineering? Or do I want to be a tailor? Like, all the different professions have their own unique benefit, and all of them feel good. All of them feel good, and I think that's the way it should be. I think
good.
When you're making a decision about like what professions you want to use, it should always be the case where it's like, man, this is really good. I don't necessarily want to give that up, but damn, that's also really good. Like, what do I do? There should never be a bad choice. There should be lots of different good choices, and I think the choice should be hard. So I really want them to bring professions back to a point where they actually matter, they actually feel meaningful, and you actually care about having them. I also want a complete economy reset. I actually really hope that they, and I know this is going to be a controversial thing, but I want them to either completely reset gold, literally, just get rid of all gold, or add a new currency so gold is completely worthless. And I know that's going to upset a lot of people that have a lot of gold, but the way I see it is, if we're going into a new expansion and your character is a potato and you need to get all of your new gear and you're basically starting from scratch in terms of professions and everything, I see no reason why gold should transfer over. Because right now, I feel like the economy in WoW is complete poop. Absolute complete poop. And
Who could have said it better? It is complete poop. I don't know about resetting gold. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. The reason for that is because it doesn't solve the core problem. If you reset gold and then people just go and they just buy WoW tokens or they sell runs or whatever, I don't think that it matters. I think that they need to fix the core problem, and they've already been removing gold from the economy more and more and more with all of these gold sink items. So I'm not sure if resetting all gold is a solution, but giving players things that all players need to kind of work towards that they would get. So like imagine if you wanted to buy flying in the next expansion, you had to spend 1 million gold on it. That would effectively reset gold. That's what I would probably rather do.
I really want to see them reset the economy. The way I see it is if you could get rich in Battle for Azeroth, you can get rich in the next expansion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The people that know how to farm gold in Classic WoW, once again, they're rich in Classic WoW, and it really didn't take them that much effort. I feel like you're still going to be able to do it again, but I think gold should really, really matter. And like I said, I know that's one of those things that's going to be controversial. People will disagree with me, but
yeah.
I personally really enjoy when going out and farming gold is something I actually care about, and it feels like a meaningful part of the game. Yeah, that brings us to professions and economy. Another thing I really, 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 really want to see them change is hidden scaling. I personally think there should be no hidden scaling in the game. I think if you're under...
Because it's fucking confusing. Like, you hit a dude for 800 and they take 700 on their screen. What the fuck? Like, they need to stop spending so much goddamn time trying to protect bad players from losing. It makes no sense, man. They spend so much time trying to protect bad players from losing.
If you're geared, you should die.
It's dog shit.
I don't like this idea where I could be a level 100. It happened at the beginning of the expansion where I was level 120. I'd gotten max level. I'd gotten some new gear. And a level 112 Boomkin farmed me. He just killed me in 3 hits because of the weird, janky, hidden scaling that they added where, you know, his character had not been scaled down yet and my character was level 120 in worst case scenario gear. It's like, stuff like that doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't think you should have to know a complex formula or all this magic that's happening behind the scenes in order to understand opponents that you can take down. If I'm level 120,
unnecessarily
I should be able
complex.
to be level 111. I know this is a problem at the beginning of the expansion, but I also don't like this whole thing where, all right, well, I attacked this guy, and on my screen it showed that I did 10,000 damage, but on his screen it showed that I did 7,000 damage. Like, what?
That's so ridiculous.
There needs to be consistency.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. It doesn't feel good.
I want to see hidden scaling Gonzo. I don't think it's good.
Type it, Gonzo. Type Gonzo.
Personally. Was there anything else?
There's like 50 more things.
Oh, there's another thing that I really wanted to see as well. And this is another one of those things that's going to be controversial. It's going to be people disagree with me, but I think right now it's pretty safe to say that there's too many damn raid difficulties.
Really?
I am someone that wants LFR Gonzo. I personally feel like there should be 2 raid difficulties. And this solves a lot of different problems. In particular, it solves the problem where every single time a new tier comes out,
Gonzo.
It's basically a character reset.
Yes.
Because it's the only way they can do it.
Yes.
I think power creep, so that I guess we can call it like power creep.
Each patch is an expansion.
Down. So
God, he's so fucking smart.
I think a big problem right now with Battle for Azeroth is, I'll give you a perfect example, okay? The first season that came out, I not only PvP'd at an elite level, so I was elite, that's what they call it. It was like gladiator/elite rating the entire season. And I had also mythic rated the entire season, okay? I had the best gear in the game. I was the most decked you could be. I did mythic plus, I mythic rated, I was a top end PvPer. Every one of my pieces of gear was completely min-maxed, ideal, stats, fully socketed. I was a legend.
Throwing it like 30
Perfect
KDPS.
Azerite gear. And then the new patch came out, and I promise you, I had spent months and months on my character. Now, when the new patch came out, if I had not played for 2 weeks, my character would have been a potato.
Yep.
And all the plebs, and I mean, take that with a grain of salt, all the plebs that were just doing LFR and doing normal raids for those 2 weeks I was away would have caught up to me. And if they'd got lucky, they probably would have been even more geared than I was.
Of course.
I really don't like the feeling where you are putting all this work and effort into your character during the expansion, and then a new patch comes out, and it feels like you have to completely reset. In order to get your gear back up again, you have to farm the same mythic dungeons.
That's even worse, right? But that's exactly why nobody did Nax back in vanilla, is because they knew Burning Crusade was going to come out, and it would have reset all of their gear. So Blizzard effectively is making the same mistake that they made 13 years ago every single fucking patch. Like, it's ridiculous. I don't get it, man. Not true. Wait, yeah, it is. There's tons of, like, what do you mean? So do you really think that there weren't raiding guilds? You really think that there weren't raiding guilds that said, okay, wow, well, the expansion's going to come out in a few months, so let's just relax for a while. And it's like, yeah, let's, instead of doing a 40-man raid that's the most challenging and difficult raid ever, we're just going to have our gear reset in a few months. Let's just go ahead and hang out and chill out. There are many, many guilds that did that. Okay, I knew some of them. Yes, of course there were some guilds that did Nax, but any guild that was just like, semi-casual didn't even try. They didn't give a fuck because they knew the expansion was going to come out and it was going to reset everything. This is the same thing that happens now, but it's the cycle of apathy occurs every 4 months rather than every 2 years. It's too often.
For the same gear, you have to do the same world quests and hope that you get Titan Forges and sockets again.
Yep.
It's not a satisfying feeling. I think power creep just gets so insane where at the beginning of the expansion, we're doing 5k DPS, and by the end of the expansion, we're doing 100k DPS. Like,
too much.
I think it's just too much.
Too much.
So I'd
True.
like to see
I
item
agree.
level increases during patches be toned down just a little bit, so your gear doesn't feel like it's meaningless after a new patch comes out. And then another thing I really want to see go away is there being 800 million graveyards. I realized how annoying it is. So during Classic and playing Classic, when I die, I feel really annoyed. Like, it sucks. I have to run back to my corpse. And sometimes it's a 5-minute run back to my corpse. It's horrible.
Longer run backs.
But it makes me feel really invested in not dying. It makes me care about my experience. It gets me kind of emotional about the game.
Yeah, you get mad.
I think that's a good thing. When I die in Battle for Azeroth, there's literally 50 grave. I don't want to say literally 50 grave, but there's
50 graveyards, and you fly directly back over to it on your flying mount. It's in spectral form. So not only, you die, you run back, it's immediate. It's the same as like wiping on Ashara. If you wipe on Ashara in the new raid, you run back, you immediately, I think you take a portal back over to her, and then you're immediately back where you were trying to be at the beginning. Right? Like, the reset is like 5 minutes, like 3 minutes. I don't know if that's a bad thing, though. It's hard really to say. But I think it depends. Like, for somebody who likes Classic, it's a bad thing. I don't know if that's a fundamentally bad thing about the game, though.
My estimation is there's 20 to 30 graveyards in a zone. And at most, you're walking 20 seconds to get to your body.
Yeah.
And this is annoying for a couple different reasons. But when I'm doing World PvP, and I kill somebody who's questing, and before I can even drink to full, they're already back at their body killing me again.
Yeah.
I think that's a damn problem. And maybe this is only like a PvP perspective, but I think it's absolutely insane. Because, I mean, I'm the type of player that thinks PvP should matter. Oh, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Oh, no, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about. Here's another very important thing I want to see with gearing, okay?
Okay.
I, right now...
Okay.
believe the secondary stats on gearing are really
Too strong.
really boring and bad. Specifically, I think crit needs a buff in PvP. I don't think it should be nerfed, or that I think they need to change it and buff it somehow.
Okay.
I also think what is it called? Versatility is a bad
Get rid
stat.
of it. Delete.
I think versatility is a really, really, really bad stat.
Big delete.
I don't think you should ever be in a situation where there's one stat that is best for offense and defense. There's no reason. Like, I think almost every class just stacks versatility, right?
In PvP, a lot of them do.
I think versatility should actually just get deleted.
Obviously
or
not in
changed
PvE. Starting with
completely.
PvP.
That's one more thing that I wanted to
It should be
add.
gone, so exactly.
Okay. So I'd like to see crit buffed in PvP.
I like that.
I don't really mind mastery, I guess. I don't really mind haste, but I do
think those
think
are good
versatility is really silly. I don't think you should ever be put in a situation where you 100% only want the stat for every class, pretty much, right? Almost every class. I'm trying to think of a few examples. The only time you don't want versatility is when your class is already immortal. Other than that, you always want versatility, pretty much. Because it does insane damage and also makes it so you can't die.
For warriors,
so
it's like
I'd
the
really
best
like
one.
to see that changed.
For PvP.
Those are my top things. I'm curious to see what you guys think. I mean, we can keep discussing this. I'm going to turn this into a YouTube video. So if you guys are watching this from YouTube, please let me know what you'd like to see in the next expansion. Let me know if you think I'm absolutely crazy or bonkers, or do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? And yeah, well, I guess we're going to find out soon enough what lies ahead.
Okay, so that was a really good video. I agree with almost all the points that he had on there. There are a few kind of like, so the graveyard run back thing, I think that's a little bit more complicated. It depends. I agree in some ways, I don't in other ways. In general, though, I think this is a really good list of ideas. And I would, if they made all of these changes to the game, I think that it would make the game better. Dude, the PvP scaling is so bad. Yeah, of course it is. It's fucking awful. Need a WoW to a complete reset. Yeah, I fucking agree, man. Yeah, he didn't even say PvP vendors with PvP gear. I don't want to be forced to PvE if all I enjoy is PvP. I don't agree with this. I think that if you want to be able to get the best gear in the game and the best content in the game and the best stuff in the game, you should want to actually go and do other elements of the game. That doesn't mean that you should have to do pet battles or something like that in order to raid, but I think that PvP and PvE should be looked at with like a symbiotic relationship to where like you want to get some PvP gear that'll help you in PvE and vice versa. I thought Wrath of the Lich King and Burning Crusade was a really good middle ground for that. I'm not saying that, you know, like vanilla where there's no PvP gear or whatever, or like no exclusive PvP gear. But yeah, I think Burning Crusade and Wrath was something that I liked a lot. Bring back resilience on gear. I didn't like resilience. I didn't like it, period. And yeah, Deathring as well. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I know that